This is the one I can talk to people. I love the use case for the black. Further ado, I'll let you tell us all about it.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I promise to try to keep this as short as possible. Lunches served, I think, conveniently after this. So for a few moments, I'll keep your attention. I want to tell you a little bit about Crowded Cloud. On the screen, you'll see digital studio democracy. What a fantastic thing to say. A real democracy, changing the digital studios, making sure everything's fair and transparent. There's only one thing that's wrong with that. To actually make that vision happen, you have to be able to make it a profitable business. And that's one of the challenges that I've had when I originally thought about Crowded Cloud and how democratization and how decentralization within the industry could be implemented. That's something I've been thinking on for quite a while. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to make business of this? Now, this is the means to the end. The end is to have a vision of a digital studio environment where people who are in the trade together work together to create content on a very profitable basis. Small things, great things, start with small steps. And this is a small effort now to get this up and going. What we're going to do is we're going to minimize a lot of the risk in the business by concentrating on the conversion of existing materials into new formats, AR, VR, 3D type formats. Now, in many ways, this is a reboot of a business I had in the late 1990s when we were doing a similar thing, taking old assets, in this case black and white, adding value to them, colorizing them, and then selling them out into the market again. So that's what this business is about. It's not about make my next great movie, fulfill my dream in terms of my being a director. It's about taking diminished assets, adding value, and profiting from those assets. The question becomes, well, who does this? Who repurposes content? And I'm going to talk about this really briefly, and I'll visit this same example over and over. Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios is a comic book. And what are they doing with it? They've taken characters, they've taken storylines, and they're telling it in a completely different way from where they started. It's very natural for us as film. But it's the same concept. Nobody believed that Marvel Studio was worth $16 billion in revenues over the last 10 years. So there's an example for you about taking diminished assets, adding value, and moving on. So, why isn't everyone doing it? There's a couple of problems in the industry today. One of them has to do with how do you globalize this industry. What is it that holds it back? There's a long history in Hollywood. It's a craft-based industry. You're looking at traditions that have developed over 100+ years. There's a reason there's a Hollywood. There's a reason why there's a film industry in New York and London and Mumbai, across the world in regional areas. It's because traditionally it's been based on personal relationships. It really is who you know. Okay, so I'm not making a stretch by saying that Hollywood's somewhat cliquish. So by using some blockchain elements, we can solve some of those issues. Another issue is how do you value content? How do you know it's going to be worth in the marketplace? That's always an issue. And once you even get what you think is a good value on it, how do you actually get that funded to create a new asset? How do you convince someone else that it's a great project and that you should dump some money into it and increase the value and make a profit? That's an issue. High labor costs. One of the things I learned in the 90s doing the film colorization is it's extremely labor intensive. So we plan on doing some technical things, which I'll get into, but the labor costs are huge. Then there's high production and computing costs. Traditionally, you walk into some of these studios and some of these production houses, and they have acres and acres of high-end equipment, expensive equipment. Capital costs are very, very high. And then there's the incumbents, the ones who control the marketplace traditionally. That's another one of the issues. So what is our solution? Well, this first statement, we're going to eliminate the need for trusted relationships. Well, smart contracts don't really do that. We know that. But in combination of the way that the business is conducted today, someone's going to do a project, major project. One of the first things they do is they form a legal contract, but most people are going to do that. Could be a special purpose entity, maybe an LLC or a C Corp, limited partnership, something is set up. Okay. We're not going to change that, but what we're going to do is make sure that key elements within those documents, those governance documents, are recorded on the blockchain. Are we going to do everything on the blockchain and convert content on the blockchain? No, but some of those transactions are going to be recorded so that people who are involved in it, the stakeholders, know what's going on. So that's one of the things that we solved there. So what about content valuation? Content valuation, we use the wisdom of the crowd. We believe that the crowd will be able to make those decisions. Going back to the Marble case, over 16 billion in revenues in the last 10 years on that library. So many pictures. Small group of folks in an executive room back in the late 90s passed on that entire library for $25 million because they think they knew best. They would have paid $10 million for Spider-Man, but they didn't want the rest. So Marvel set that up themselves. They set it, and not many people thought that Marvel would be successful when they set up that studio. But it tells you that they knew something that Sony didn't, and it was their fan base. They had data about what people wanted. And they took an asset that wasn't even worth $10 million in the marketplace. And they've generated $16 billion in revenues over 10 years. That's an incredible, incredible upside. So social computing and crowd-based methods are also going to be helping us. We're going to focus on using machine languages, AI type techniques to do these conversions. When we were doing this before, we used machines to do some of the linear interpolation between scenes, and then we had human operators making the corrections. The human eye is an amazing instrument. And although artificial intelligence and unsupervised learning and these different types of techniques to do the image processing are very, very good, it always comes down to that last 3%. That's the 3% that people see that they say, I don't care for it. So there's still a human element to it, and it's still a costly element, so we have to have some type of technologies to correct that. So AI technology to do the heavy lifting, social computing on a global basis. And by social computing, I mean elements like something like the Capital Turk. If you're thinking in your mind, what is social computing? It's using people out in the world with their devices to make small corrections in the images that the machines couldn't do. By the way, if any of you are interested in machine learning, you understand that training these systems is very, very expensive. That's the most expensive part of it, is making the correction. We're developing tools that automate that process and make it cheap to improve the tools. So once we feed back that learning, you get a loop, and we're just going to get better and better and better on our image processing. So I see over time economies of scale in terms of it. And by the way, also, the other big problem with AI is having a learning set, a data set to teach you things. Films, they're 90 minutes long. Okay, they're 30 minutes long, but they're 13 seasons, 13 episodes times 10 seasons. And they're all the same characters. They're all the same sets. You have a tremendous amount of data set to be able to train these systems to make this conversion even possible. Production computing costs, well, the cloud exists today. We're going to be using social computers to do some of the small corrections. We're going to leverage their computing devices. What we're doing here is we're squeezing everything out we can in the process of conversion to make the economics work. That's the whole point. And then how do you get this to people? Well, we can use the traditional, but I don't think the traditional has figured out AR and VR yet. We see a lot of direct-to-consumer coming out. Getting the material to the folks is not going to be the issue. The devices are coming out already. We're working with both the HoloLens as well as the Magic Leap device. We're exploring these types of devices. The demand for content is what's going to be the leverage that we have. So how do you make money on this? Hang in here with me for a few minutes. So we're doing a raise of $100 million. Less than 10% of that money we use to develop our technology, roll out the ecosystem, and further our business plan. The vast majority of those funds, over 90%, are used to develop what we call a film fund, essentially, what we call the project development pool. Project development pool is a community asset. The platform owns the technology, holds the technology. The pre-token sales the pre-token raise that we're doing now is going to be used to to roll out that platform, set up the production pipeline, and then the user community-owned funds will use those funds to sponsor projects going through that process. The projects, the legal entity, as I mentioned earlier, the special purpose entities, the governance terms, the major contractual terms are recorded on the smart contract. Okay? The promising projects are crowdfunded, meaning that folks who own the tokens can take their token and commit it to a project. That project, because it's a special purpose entity, a legal entity, in return for those tokens, you receive an ownership right and a claim to future revenues off that. Okay? So there's equity involved in that stage as well. In addition, the community can vote to allocate funds to that project development as well, funds from the PDP. In other words, there's an opportunity for you to leverage your money with a match from the PDP. But the PDP has to be voted on by a group of folks within the community. The community has to agree to that. But if your project's very interesting, your project has merit, why wouldn't the community do that? One thing I learned by working in the entertainment industry is money is a great motivator. You set up a fund and you start setting up the ability and the capability to actually produce these assets, people will use it. They have no reason not to. They're looking for the type of capital we're talking about to develop their properties. There's no mechanism out there that I'm aware of that enables this type of thing. So each profitable project adds to the value of the PDP. Corollary to that, each unsuccessful project diminishes the value of the PDP. There's risk in this business like there's risk in any other business. And I won't make any secrets about that. But I believe by providing a community of like-minded folks who have an opportunity to benefit from their efforts and to work in a manner that they want to work with and who they want to work with across the global community, that we'll be able to attract the right types of projects, the right types of people, that will have a great, great potential to see increased value in the PDP as well as the projects themselves. So the return is individual returns. When each project that's completed and goes out to the market, keep the token holders who sponsored that, who took an ownership interest in it, they get their interest stream. And then you also get a return to the PDP if the PDP chose to do that as well. So the PDP is only used to fund projects or for ecosystem sustainment. Ecosystem sustainment, think of that as shared services. Large corporate conglomerate, there's no sense everyone having human resources, no sense everyone having security for the cloud, for the technology that you're offering on the platform. Those are types of activities that are covered in the ecosystem sustainment. Our roadmap. Well, you're very fortunate. We're at the very beginning. We have not taken any dollars from anybody. We've done all the work that we've put into this over the years that we've been working on this on our own. But we are now at a stage where we believe that it's time to come to the community and ask for funds to help us accelerate to make this happen. Within this quarter, we'd like to be able to have our token offering completed, the pre-sale as well as the main sale, and have our technology up and running. And by this time next year, working on our first conversion project, and having it completely out in the community by the end of next year. The team is a team of professionals that have worked together for a number of years. Some of these people on the page I've known for 20 plus years. One of these individuals is my sister. I've known her my whole life. That would be Ruby. She's just retired from Microsoft. She's very, very deep into mixed reality areas. Ravi, top center. I've worked with Ravi in the colorization business. We developed the software. We developed some of the conversion technologies. We even set up a facility in India to help process some of that work when we did that. Those types of benefits are gone. That's why we've gone this way. We have to squeeze the economics out in other ways. Marty Schindler is a longtime participant in the film. He actually came out of ILM, background in finance as well as business development, but he's very well known in Hollywood circles and technology. Justine Whitehead is in post-production. I've known Justine for 20 years. I actually convinced her in an afternoon, at a time of an emergency I had, to get on a plane the next day and go to India and train 60 folks that we had to set up a facility there. And we've been friends ever since. Aaron Estrada, I haven't known Aaron that long, but Justine has known him for quite a while. Aaron is a cloud computing expert in the visual effects industry. Dave Manley, a fellow with the sunglasses. His background is cybersecurity. He works quite a lot in with agencies, national agencies, NRO, things of that nature. Dave Wickersham is an Center. He's happens to be here this evening. I've known Dave since our days at Purdue together, where we both graduated with degrees in astronautics. Dave's an attorney. He's also a pilot, and he's my wingman, so to speak, making sure that I stay out of trouble. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure from the very beginning is that we did a compliant offer. And we've been seeking the type of advice and help from folks to get us that area. So with that, the point I'd like to make here is why now? Why this now? It's not something I haven't looked at. I experienced some of the issues that I've talked about in this industry back in the late 1990s. I first started taking a look at the conversion and filed my patent for this back in 2014, excuse me. I put this on the shelf for a while because of some of the issues I said on how to make the decentralized and the voting aspects and the crowd, not so much crowdfunding, but crowdsourcing, how to make that happen. So it's really a convergence of many technologies that's making it happen right now. So the blockchain provides the mechanism for the governance, but it doesn't provide the mechanisms for the conversion. There's also technology involved in that. And AI has gotten to the point now where we can make the economics work. So it's really the convergence of many different items. So with that, this last slide is connect with us, and I mean that in a very true sense, because what we're really developing here is a community. Okay? And this goes back to the beginning. What is this community? It's about providing the benefits to people who participate. Folks who show up today and actually get involved with us and invest money are going to be rewarded with ownership in the platform company as well as tokens. We're looking for people who want to participate in the trade. There's mechanisms within the PDP to make sure that people are incentivized not to just sit on tokens. It's a trade. And by increasing the value of the PDP, we all win. Okay? So that community is artists, it's financiers, it's producers, it's distributors, it's the whole network of folks. So with that, I'll open it for any questions. No questions. Oh, yes, please.
All right, so 3 questions for you. Number 1, how you said the value of the content is determined by the crowd. Can the crowd be any fandom, or do you have to be qualified to be in that crowd?
So on that question, I see it as multiple levels. Obviously, we can use social media, we can use incentives, bounties, those types of things to get the general public involved in, oh, I like that film, I like that film. Okay. At the level within the ecosystem itself, where you have participants who are knowing the trade, there's professionals who can do valuations. Okay, and I'm sure that they'll put their evaluation on it, but it really is a group effort, and we'll take data from all those different places to do that. When I say we, okay, the platform provides an enabling system for folks to interact. I don't see myself as a decider as to what content is better or not. Okay? So, but what I see my role as is providing and enabling professionals and non-professionals to come together and make those types of decisions themselves.
So my quirk with that is a 13-year-old who loves Spider-Man and they want to make a fan film. How do they contribute to the facet of actually valuing content? Well,
so and from that, just in that specific one, I see that role as more informational, more of a marketing type, survey type of information, where you're gathering this type of social media to do your own analysis on a professional basis. There are millions and millions of dollars spent to actually find out what the opinions of 13-year-olds are. So it would be silly not to take into account that data. But there also have to be the means within the system for people to make those types of decisions. And although we use the word democracy, is it really when it's the token value, the number of tokens you have that's making that vote? So that type of impression can be modulated by the folks who are in the industry themselves. So if you come in and you say, hey, I don't think that 13-year-old knows what he's talking about. I'm not going to do Spider-Man, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to commit $10 million to do it. Of his tokens, he has faith in that. So.
All right, understood. So, do you have a token lockup? You have a lockup period for tokens.
Yes, for the initial tokens, yes.
And what does that look like?
It would be in our token offering document. It's not published just yet. We do have our white paper out. I'd have to go back and look at the exact months, but the intent of it was to ensure that tokens released early, or I'm sorry, not released, issued early, would not be released into the market prematurely. We do not want to do the token sale until we have a full idea of where we're heading in terms of the offering documents. Of course, would include all of the types of risks involved, the token distribution, and the amounts that we're raising, the discounts that we're offering.
Got it. My fear is that, the current trend in every ICO with, some of the most incredible projects getting the most incredible dumps after, its exchanges. So what actual incentivization? I know there's the potential to make more money with the future, but if you hold, US dollars, you also have the potential to make future money. So what actually is the true incentive for people to hold the tokens and wait until virtually the end of 2019 to not sell them and give a token sell-off?
So the PDP has its value itself. So by selling the token in the open marketplace, it doesn't diminish the value of the PDP. The PDP is a community asset. And if you sell the token that you have and you sell it in the exchange, it doesn't change the value of the PDP.
It changes the value of the token which the PDP is made up of?
Correct. So within our ecosystem, we still have the PDP funds to protect that. Now, I'm not going to claim that a $1 in PDP translates to $1 of value in the token, because as you rightly are pointing out, the free market's going to determine the value of that token. Okay? But you're selling that token in the free market is not going to change the value of that PDP. The only way that value of that PDP is changed is that the holders of tokens can vote to contribute that PDP funds to a project that people believe will make money. You follow me? Yes, sir.
I'm just, so you raise $100 million.
Yes.
90% of that is the PDP.
Correct.
So you're going to take the $100 million in Ethereum or Bitcoin or cash, whatever it is, and you're going to have a mix, so you're hedging against this.
No different than the $100 million that Lionsgate raised for their studio.
So even if I dump my tokens, I mean, if everybody did, you would still have $90 million at the end of the day for the project development.
Yes.
So the value would be
The value might change if, for example, during our raise, we took 40% fiat, 30% Bitcoin, and the other balance, another 30% in Ether, if I'm doing my math very quickly. Now, we would have to make some decisions in terms of how we want to balance our portfolio, whether we want to have some type of play in terms of the upside of this. But I'm not investing in cryptocurrencies. I'm investing in putting money through a pipeline to make money on content. And this is why we structured it this way, was for this very reason. Well, everyone's going to sell the coin. How's the coin? No. All right. PDP is a community asset, and you're selling your token on the open market. It might bring you money on that day, but it diminishes your ability to control that PDP. You lose your vote.
Where does it go? Is it Ethereum?
Pardon?
Is it your own blockchain? Where's it being go?
Well, so, okay. Let's think about layer cakes. And And let's talk about where do you use blockchain technology and how do you use blockchain appropriately. So at the highest levels of the platform, as well as the special purpose entities for the individual projects, expect a public blockchain. The transaction costs are high, okay? But it is public. Okay? Now I can encrypt the information on it so I can keep some things private. But if you have the key and I have the key and that's what we put up there, we can see what those documents are. We can program that governance into a smart contract. So at that level, it's a public blockchain. Within the ecosystem itself, if you step back, it may not, we may use a permission system where the encryption can be a little bit less, our security can be a bit more tighter. And we're also working within the constraints of the MPAA, as well as some IEEE type standards for security and things of that nature. So, close that off a little bit. So it really depends on what level within the system you're looking at for the blockchain itself and how we're using that technology.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to line something up with, like, say, Hyperledger is permission, or Oracle, or.
Yeah, use state channels to roll the data up from the lower levels up to the higher levels to make sure that the smart contracts are triggered on time. So what are the smart contracts about? Smart contracts are, okay, do I have a legal contract? Okay. Do I have an estimate? Do I have acceptance criteria in that? So when the work is actually performed, will the people who are performing the work going to get paid? And when it goes out to distribution, are the rights owners, the person who's on the author in the front end, these are 75-year assets. You generate a copyright when you create these types of things. It's a long time to keep it. Right. Anyone else have a question? Yes, please.
So how is it sustainable if, $100 million that you're raising is not really a lot of money as far as film production budgets go when you're talking about, the types of fan chosen, that would be heavily reliant on, CGI and things of that nature, which is very cost intensive. So if, the funds are going into a film or a handful of films and they don't produce the income that you're hoping for when they reach the film markets, how do you intend to salvage?
Well, that's a very good question. So there's a couple of different ways to answer that question and a couple of different levels. First, let's go to the individual risks, meaning how do I know the project's going to be successful? I don't. I'm going to use wisdom of the crowd to make sure that I reduce some of that market risk and some of that market knowledge that I really need to make a good estimate on what this is going to cost to do and what it's going to generate in the marketplace. So that's how I'm kind of reducing the risk there. Sticking with, and this is sticking initially with, okay, content that is known by those entities. Hobby Days, that is the example we use in the use case. It's really based on Happy Days. People know what Happy Days is. So I can get information on what people think about that, how it might do in the marketplace, okay? So that's how we're reducing risks, by going with known entities, okay? $100 million, bear with me, I have a couple more steps here. $100 million, as you're right, is not a huge amount of money for something that costs $150 million to do. If you're doing a one-off at $150 million, I'm hoping it's going to, and there's been some fabulous successes and there's been amazing flops, okay? This is not the sexy Hollywood business. This is the industrial business. This is taking existing diminished assets. It's bottom feeding in a lot of ways. And when you bottom feed, it really comes down to productivity and how you squeeze everything out of cost, okay, to reduce the risk even more. So now what we're doing is, instead of $100 million job, we're going to do $52 million productions. We're going to spread our bets, okay? So we reduce market risk by trying to get the crowd to, the wisdom of the crowd to bring it in. We're spreading our bets, and this is the nice catcher. When you build this pipeline, I'm building this pipeline and I'm presenting this business case for this pipeline to convince you that it's worth going forward on. But there's nothing to stop us from using that pipeline for something else. And that's where it gets really advantageous. Is now that I've got this capability, can I run another $200 million through it? So the platform and the token holders, who will control that after we have it rolled out, can make those types of decisions and increase it and start doing bigger bets. But initially, I think this is what we need to bite off to make this thing reality. Go ahead.
Okay, so, I mean, even with all of the testing and, crowd input, it it doesn't mean success. When you look at the Han Solo movie, which was a $250 million budget, and it's a total flop.
Right.
You know, I used to work in film production, $2 million is nothing. I would love to see your budget for line item for a $2 million movie, because that's a real challenge to get anything that's even workable at a film festival level done at that particular budget.
And I agreed, if I was making a film, I would say you're absolutely right. I couldn't even pay for the film grips for that, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm converting existing content. And I've gone through that conversion, and it costs less than $2 million to do that.
So essentially, you're creating a platform that's the digital Uwe Boll of the.
Perhaps that's fine.
All right, sorry, I
No,
was
you
trying
don't have
to
to be
wrap my
sorry.
head around the numbers.
Yeah, no, but again, I think if you wrap your numbers around a traditional look at a film and what it costs to do a film, you're absolutely right. I mean, but that's not what we're doing, and that's why the risk is so diminished, because we're using existing content and converting it rather than creating new.
Also, I think about this from an investor's perspective, right? So if you're interested in an investment in the entertainment space, and you say, well, you know, I like the idea of the Sony Pictures because I like the films they put out, there's no guarantee that any of their films will be successful. The only thing that you have here, I shouldn't say the only thing, but one of the things that I like about this is you do have input from the crowd. So you do have a starter in terms of market direction of, yes, this is something we'd like to see, and yes, this is content that we're willing to put our money behind, pay for it. So that said, it may be one of those things where an entertainment investment isn't the right investment for everyone because they know that stuff's going to flop, and the hit ratio is 1 out of 5 or whatever it turns out. I don't even know what the number is, but all I'll say is if you like the entertainment industry as something to invest in, I think this is a good opportunity in the sense that it does give you a head start in terms of kind of having direction on what the market likes in terms of content that they want to see.
Well, I mean, a suggestion on that end would be for people to pay X amount and then have acting roles or some other involvement on the creative side where they get those credits on IMDb and everything like that. Because I think you would get a lot of people wanting to buy in and be involved in even a very low budget production.
So when I describe this project to people, like I talk about what the use case could be, and correct me if I'm wrong on this as I walk through it. But you know, like I grew up in the 70s, so I watched reruns of Batman on TV. So the idea of converting Batman and into a augmented reality, I put my goggles on in a 3D world, I'm 60s Batman fighting the Joker. To me, that's hugely appealing. I mean, that is something I would be absolutely in favor of.
So and if you look at the economics of what I'm talking about, and you look at the economics compared to what you're describing as a film production, I don't have to pay for script development. I don't have to pay for talent. I don't have to pay for live action shooting. I don't have to pay the producer's fee. I don't have to pay the director's fee. All we're doing is post-production.
Okay.
You see, we're really only doing post-production. So there is no huge cost in terms of, I think this is not the sexy part of the business. This is taking old assets and trying to wring value out of them.
What about things like, okay, Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Really
I'm sorry?
Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a really popular show. Joss Whedon worked at Marvel. Since we're talking Marvel, I know a lot of fans stuck in DVD hell because they can't upscale. They upscale it, screws up all the aspect ratios. It was made in 4:3, I guess, and they filmed it a specific way. So if you actually expanded it, made it widescreen, made it for HD or whatnot, you can see all of the production staff. You would see
This is one of the in your mind's eye when you think about, oh, you're going to take existing material and you're going to convert it into AR, VR, and we think, oh, okay, I'm going to take Buffy the Vampire Slayer and I'm going to watch it on VR.
Right.
So what? I'm just got something on my head that makes me look ridiculous while I'm watching the same thing I could watch with a couple of people in the room. Okay. So by taking and keep in mind the Marvel model. Marvel didn't make the comic books on glossier paper, finer line art, and better coloring. That's not what they did. What they did is they took the characters and the stories and they retold them in a way that they were unable to do back in the 40s because of budgets or for whatever reason or even demand. So you're really talking about existing characters, existing stories, and using that content to tell the stories in a different way. So I don't think. Now, there may be some folks out there that's all they want to do, that, a straight up conversion we'll just watch it that way. But we see the value more in being people coming in and doing some of this creative types of things that you're talking about.
Right. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, if you're thinking like talking like Ready Player One type ideas where you know, that's part of the book plot where he plops into the middle of a, movie scene of like war games or money, and you have it all around you and it's playing in front of you. You feel like you're in the movie or you're a character. I understand it from that perspective, but I guess I have trouble, from the other perspective, just the idea of getting the rights and just, again, upscale. They're doing that themselves and they're making deals with Netflix
Right.
and all that. And even then, by the way, just for your Marvel example, they actually do constantly release, I mean, there's comic book games, just FYI. So they do release lots of restored comics all the time, and everything digital is being restored and upscaled. So that's actually not really the best example to use because they really have that in their business model. And the IPs for movies, they sold a bunch of the rights to other studios when they were going bankrupt, and Avi Arad and those guys started, how
Yeah, they're pretty desperate for money there.
Exactly, and they took it, but it's not like they took a movie that they just did with the character that they would want to see with Iron Man, took an actor that they thought had washed out, Robert Downey Jr., then they made a film. I mean, that's not, I feel like it's different than what you're trying to tell us this process is, because that's really.
Well, also, I'm still struggling with the numbers on, the production costs, because post-production costs, just to convert from 2D to 3D, which is basically taking the same film and relaying it slightly sideways and cutting both of them. I mean, that's like $4 or $5 million just to do that to a film that's already cut and done. You're talking about creating spaces beyond what's already there, so you can be in it and look around. I just, I love the idea. I just, I'm struggling with the reality in those numbers.
Well, these are numbers that are based on my previous experience doing similar conversions in the 1990s. And I think that a lot of the technologies that are emerging in terms of object recognition and be able to do a lot of that work is not being taken advantage within the industry today. I think there's a large interest to make each and every frame a total artistic direction.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of costs can be squeezed out of the model. So I understand where your numbers are coming from. I know those very well, and I know the technology behind 3D. It's not really a true 3D. And you would think, well, shoot. I mean, this is even going to be more work because not only am I just shifting and having to fill in that missing information on the ship, what if somebody walks behind? What are they going to see on the other side? All right.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why it's going to take us a little bit longer to get up and running the pipeline is to make sure that we have the technologies right in terms of machine assistance that we need to reduce the labor cost on this. The labor cost is the same problem I had when I was doing film colorization. We had to go offshore to do it. We couldn't afford it on the labor that's being paid in Hollywood. So if you look at that cost of that $5 million of 3D, it's technically, it's not hard to do. You explained it. No, you take it through that, you put polygons around, you shift it, and you fill in a little information. $5 million. It can be done in ways that are not quite as expensive as that. And I've proved that, so I'm comfortable with where we're at. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I would say I really like this idea. So we've dealt a lot in the past. We're doing like some research, and children are loving like the VR stuff in general. So like taking like old material, rebranding it. Have you thought of like how exactly you're going to market this? Or like what you have in line, or who do you have in place to actually like take this to market? Because if you do have that type of expense, and it is costing like less than $2 million, and taking some of these old, what we would consider like, something that's very old, we've already seen it. But if you rebrand it for some of these younger generation, the younger millennials, I think that they would love it. So like, what would be a strategy of actually taking it to market, especially for this younger generation that are utilizing and consuming like social media very hard? Regular marketing channels are not being used by the new age group of youngsters.
So this is a real quandary because even the industry is dealing with this quite a lot. The traditional ways of distributing film content, television content, geographic and the time periods that they typically use don't work that well with the Amazon and Netflix Netflix and the streaming model, so they've had to adjust over time, and now you see a lot of gaming coming in. Now you've got a lot of new devices that are coming that people aren't going to watch this type of entertainment in different ways. So rather than my trying to make all those decisions, I think we need to be as flexible as possible, and that's why the ecosystem is so valuable, because it brings inputs from all the industry. All the industry players come in. If they feel that they can distribute that, well, let them distribute it. And if it has value, people are going to recognize that value. So traditional manners of distribution, augmented, of course, by new ways, direct to consumer, but there's also other ways, event locations. In other words, theatrical, but not theatrical that we're thinking in terms of the performance in an AMC theater, escape rooms. You know, where can you put this type of content? Where's the demand for content going to be? Just like the internet, when it first emerged, people didn't know how it was going to work out. What's this eBay thing? I mean, I'm old enough to remember that. Okay? It's the same way with AR and VR, I believe. That the ways that the stories are going to be told are going to be told differently. Okay? Am I going to be able to? I'm not a storyteller. I'm an engineer. Okay? I'm all about process. But I work, call me a professional cat herder. Okay? I've worked with people in the creative business, astronauts, folks who are turning wrenches on launch platforms. Okay? My value is being able to bring those people together and set up a system by which we can produce this type of content. Where those ideas come from, where the brilliance comes from, how we get it out in the marketplace, we're all going to fight in the same direction to make that happen. So I see this on the first slide, digital democracy, digital studio democracy. My initial step to make it happen is to find a way to make it profitable out the door. And I believe I can do it with this repurposed model. Is it the end state? No, it's the beginning. That's where I'm at on that. Okay.
Okay, that was great. Javi, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.